cracking toast, Gromit.
Hi everyone. If someone asks me what my favorite British cartoon is, I reply Wallace and Gromit. The reason I like this franchise is that I have always been a fan of the humor, and of course it's made with the claymation technique. I love claymation. I discovered Wallace and Gromit when I watched the movie The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Wallace and Gromit is a franchise created by Nick Park, a British animator and filmmaker. Nick started working on his student short, A Grand Day Out, while he was still at college. That was the first project with Wallace and Gromit as protagonists. After meeting Aardman Animation's founders Peter Lord and David Sproxton at his college during a talk, he wanted to present his project and was automatically hired by them in 1985. A Grand Day Out was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film in 1991, but lost, surprisingly, to another Nick Park short, Creature Comforts. The plot is simple. Wallace, for the bank holiday, wants to find a place to spend it with Gromit. After that, he realized that he had finished the cheese at home for his crackers, so he decided to build a rocket to go to the moon. He's always inventing eccentric contraptions that always end up causing trouble for him and Gromit. Gromit, however, patiently steps in and ends up saving both Wallace and the day. What I like about Wallace and Gromit is the perfect balance of humor and homage, using irony to poke fun gently at the British society. After the success of A Grand Day Out, Aardman produced additional Wallace and Gromit films. The following one was The Wrong Trousers, one of my favorite shorts. I found The Wrong Trousers to be well written. It's a mature short, a very well balanced mix of gags, slapstick comedy, and British humor. The first time I watched Wallace and Gromit was in Italian, and all the jokes were adapted. My knowledge of culture and society in other countries is limited, so whenever I catch even a small glimpse, I consider it a victory. The Wrong Trousers was a success. It was even better than the previous short. It was well scripted, it had nice jokes, and a better characterization. Plus, the animation was so clean and beautiful. After The Wrong Trousers, the next short movie was A Closed Shave. In this short movie, for the first time, appears Shaun the Sheep, another Nick Park's creation. But again, as I said before, the movie that made me discover Wallace and Gromit was The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. To me, it was love at first sight. The movie is full of funny jokes, slapstick comedy, romanticism, sadness, and a well-written mix of qualities that make it unforgettable. This movie is so fantastic, I love it, really. I also love the story behind the production of this movie. The author didn't want to change the characters or to adapt it for a different mainstream audience that it was loyal to Disney movies in that period. And after watching The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, I cooked up with the rest of the franchise. I watched Cracking Contraptions, A Matter of Love and Death, and Vengeance Most of All. I have always loved the simplicity of the character designs and the film photography of Wallace and Gromit. This one reminds me of a UK that now belongs only to small towns and villages. So the way to celebrate the love that I have for this British duo was to, of course, model both Wallace and Gromit. So let's see how I did it. The first step was to look for reference, as always. You cannot start something without having references. At the beginning, I was thinking of modeling a Sherlock Holmes version of Wallace, which it didn't happen. So the only thing left is a rough sketch I did. This time, instead of using PureRef, I used OneNote. Why I used OneNote, even if I don't like it? It's just because I needed a software where I could add notes for the script of this video also from my phone. So that's it, basically. Okay, so after getting all the references for Wallace and Gromit, I deleted the default cube in Blender and added a sphere. Usually when I want to block a character, I use primitive shapes like a cube, a sphere, a cylinder. Then I started to scale and rotate the mesh. And then I also changed the shape of the mesh with the sculpting tools. Usually when you want to draw or sculpt a human figure, you want to use the 8 heads rule for the proportions. In my case, for Wallace, I used 4 Wallace heads. So the next step was to remesh the head and add rough details. Same went for the hands and the rest of the body. For the waistcoat, I had to give a couple of tries before ending up with something I liked. Same went for the hands. The problem was that I was sculpting the palm to the wrong side. For the shoes, the sole and the tie, I went for a box modeling. The same procedure was applied to Gromit. I blocked the character, sculpted, and used the box modeling technique for the ears and the tail. The pack of crackers is just a cube that has been scaled on x-axis, and I also wanted to extrude the edges on both sides to give it a better packaging look. For the cracker instead, I just preferred to use a box modeling technique and give to a box a bone shape. This time I didn't want to use any specific tool for the topology. I just went for a classic approach. I am still new to understanding where the seams should be applied to a mesh when doing a UV map. For what I know, seams should be applied in places that are not visible to camera. But at the same time, it's also a struggle for me to get a UV flat map. So in this case, for Wallace, I tried my best. Here as well, I gave like a couple attempts before getting a result that was satisfying for me. Also, this time I wanted to give a different approach to the texture density of the characters. So instead to have a different sizes like for Donkey Kong, I wanted to use the average island scale and the Pack Islands commands just to keep the UV well scaled and well tidy. Even though for Gromit it was much easier than Wallace to prep all the UV maps, I still find myself not completely prepared on how an UV map should be. Okay, so the next step was to pose the characters. So what I had to do was to create a basic skeleton for both of them. And believe me, this part, it has been a nightmare for me. Why? Because when I built the basic skeleton for Wallace and I assigned the automatic weights group to the character, all the part on the left screen side was messed up. So when I was rotating the fingers, the vertices of the shoe were following the fingers. So there were weird deformations happening. So what I had to do, it was to fix again all the weight distribution of the left hand and doing the same for the right arm and the right hand and for both shoes and soles and the waistcoat. Luckily for Gromit, I didn't have to touch anything. I only had to work on the blend shapes for the perplexed expression. I also created an advanced rig for the eyes, so it was easy for me to make them following in a different direction. And after that, I also parented the packaging and the cracker to a couple of empty groups to use as a controllers. So when the nightmare finished, I paused the characters. I paused Gromit looking perplexed at Wallace, and Wallace looking at Gromit, showing on his left hand the cracker and on his right hand the Gromits. When I worked on the shaders, I started with simple colors, and then I wanted to use a PBR approach and used a fingerprint map to draw it on each body part of Wallace to create this plasticine effect. I didn't want to use Usu Paint this time, so I did everything with the basic tools of Blender, and I used the roughness, the bump, and AO maps to simulate the effect. But it was still not convincing me, so what I did was to apply to each single mesh a displace modifier with a noise map and a fingerprint map. For the cracker packaging, I used Inkscape, and it was really fun. You're gonna guess where I took the inspiration for that. I didn't use Inkscape for a very long time, so it is always a pleasure to work with. Okay, and we arrived at the end. Wow. Okay, so this time I did not expect to work on two characters at the same time, so it has been challenging, especially for Wallace. But I think it's gonna be always challenging for me because I never know what approach I should use, what kind of workflow I should use, because I still don't have a workflow. So this time the challenge was not only that, but it was also deciding all the changes along the way I was making while working on both models. And it has been so time consuming for me, especially when you don't know what to do. But yes, luckily you arrived at the end of this video, as you can see from the turnaround of both Wallace and Gromit. So you made it. Well done to me to finish this scene. And what else I can say? Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like it, please leave a like, subscribe, and don't forget to turn the bell on to stay updated on when my next video will be out. And please let me know in the comments with what you struggle with, if it's a sculpting, if it's modeling, if it's a drawing, if it's painting, whatever. Just let me know in the comments what is it. I'm really curious.